your main event. Introducing the hosts of Wrestling with Freddie, Jeff Dye, and Freddie Prinze Jr.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new episode of Wrestling with Friends, Wrestling with Freddie. I'm your host. We have no news because it's September. You don't want news in September. The fall's here. The breezes are nice. The ladies are looking good. The men are starting to dress up a little more, ladies, so they're looking good for you.
What up, dude?
How are you, sir?
I'm feeling good.
We're gearing up to head to Survivor Series. And whenever anyone from our generation talks about Survivor Series, there's one fact that we will not ever let go of, nor ever forget, though we try daily. And that is the gobbledygooker. Now, today we're going to talk about gimmicks in and out of the ring, the good ones and the bad ones. But it has to start and finish with this, because this is the single worst idea that anyone in the WWE has ever had. And that might even be including Brawl for All. So this was a giant egg, and everyone wanted to know what was in the egg. And the announcers and the people talking about the egg led the people to believe that there was going to be gold in there, that the fans were going to win something. They were certain that something great for the fans was going to come out of this. And it was weeks. It was 3, 4, 5 weeks leading up to this, and we're finally going to realize what it is on Thanksgiving. And so it's Survivor Series, and here's the big reveal, and the crowd's excited and they're hyped up, and the egg cracks, and it cracks a little more, and then the egg cracks open, and out comes a dude in a fucking turkey suit. And the crowd didn't cheer. The crowd didn't boo. The crowd had the same reaction that a lot of you are having when I said a guy in a turkey suit, which is just, wait, what? And you could hear a fart in there if someone would have broken wind. It was so quiet and everyone hated it so much. I always wished I could have been in the room when that gimmick died so that I could see the look on the face of the person who came up with it. And I'm pretty sure it was Vince who came up with the gobbledygooker.
Had to be.
But to think that was going to be, it had to be, right? To think that it was going to be anyone else is absolutely, it has to be insane, because it's crazy enough that it could only be Vince. But to think anybody would like that is maybe the most arrogant or uninformed decision ever made. So I've shit on that enough. How about you, Jeff? Let's get into some of what do you want to start with?
Well, I don't even think the gobbledygooker is the worst one. The gobbledygooker was so bad that it kind of became a reoccurring thing, so it's like they eventually started doing, well, not eventually, but there was a time when the San Diego Chicken came into wrestling and was kind of like similar, like Pete Rose, like there was a thing where the San Diego Chicken had beef with Kane, and they're like, why? And it's because Pete Rose had beef with Kane, and then Pete Rose was in the San Diego Chicken costume. It was all kind of confusing and weird, but the gobbledygooker goes back. Gene Okerlund was like, this is embarrassing. I've got to interview the gobbledygooker. Like, this is ridiculous. And it just kept working. Then it was the Boogeyman. Then it was Xavier Woods. Then Jey Uso was in there. It's kind of lived on since 1990. And it made it the last time that we saw it.
They made
he
Woodsy
was in there
be
once
the
in
gobbledygooker
2015,
one time.
yeah. But
son of a bitch.
I think one of the worst gimmicks was Omos. There was a time when Tozawa he had like because he's Asian, they wrote like this whole storyline of him being like a ninja, and he had like all these ninjas behind him. One of the ninjas was his giant ninja, who was just almost wearing a terribly ill-fitting mask and like kind of a weird Halloween costume, almost looked like a cheap Undertaker Halloween costume. And he was the giant ninja. And I remember being like, I don't know who that guy is, but that guy rules, because I love like giant dudes. But it lasted maybe a couple weeks. One of the worst things ever.
All right. What about this?
Okay.
Maybe I can top it. What about Vincent Kennedy McMahon versus God?
Yes, I hated this. I hated it. It was. It's
That's
tough
the
to offend
worst.
me. It was so offensive. Every single
That's
It's
the
so
one that
offensive. Like, he
finally
goes into a
offended you?
church and challenges God, and then like he rinses his face with the holy water. Like it's just like it was like a bowl that's just there for you to like rinse your hands in. Like it was just every part that would get a laugh or would get a reaction from the crowd was just so latently blasphemous that it was ridiculous. And then they're like, how are they going to portray God? And it was just a spotlight that like went down on the ramp and then like followed into the.
That was the
So
best
ridiculous.
part. Dude, he beat God's ass, bro.
That's so ridiculous. I mean, like,
It wasn't even a good match. It was a squash match, bro. God didn't even put up much of a
I'm curious how he's going to
fight.
justify that when he gets to the pearly gates. Like, how is he going to explain this to God?
He won't even walk up to
Yeah.
the gates. As soon as he dies, he knows exactly which direction to walk. He's not even going to ask. He'll be like, yeah, I know. The Bret Hart thing alone, I deserve.
Yeah, that's true. Like, but like that, this one was extra blasphemous. Not as bad as fighting God, but Brian Kendrick did a thing for a while where, and I would love to talk to him to ask him if he came up with this. Did he pitch this? What was the idea? I don't hate the idea, but the execution was terrible and it didn't last long. Every week that wherever WWE was traveling, Brian Kendrick would come out as the mascot of that city's pro team. So when he was like in Phoenix, Arizona, he came out as the Diamondback, which is just the
For
Arizona
sure not his
Diamondback.
idea.
And then when he came out in New York, he was the Jet instead of like for the Jets. But it didn't really go over. No one really like understood. Also, like him just wearing like a luchador mask that's green and like green pants and calling himself the Jet. Even the crowd's like, is he supposed to be like the New York Jets or like we don't really know what this is.
Oh, he didn't dress like the mascot. He was dressing like a luchador
Sort of.
representing
I mean,
the
it was
team?
always kind of. He was like it looked like he went into like a props closet and just put on the color of the sports team and like whatever the thing was. Because the Diamondback is like a snake.
He should have put on some knickerbockers and done the New York Knicks and
That'd have
wrestled
been
in little
cute.
knickerbockers.
He is little.
Yeah, that'd have been super cute.
I just remember thinking that was a crappy gimmick.
Where do we stand on bra and panty matches?
I was a big fan of them.
At the time
Both.
versus now.
I think it both. I liked it then. I like it now. I mean, at least they were leaning into the fact that these girls were hot.
Well, I think there's been a handful of women's matches that I've spoken about, but we speak about more of the men's matches here. When someone's smoking hot, well, I do that for the guys too. So that's
I feel like we are
talk
pretty
about
good.
the hot dudes too. We're the voices of the people. We're not the voice of the voiceless. That's CM Punk. We're the voices of the people. We say what they wish they could say, and we fear not your digital attacks for when you hate the things we say.
So, that being said, always loved a bra and panties match. It acknowledged the hot women. And you know what great gimmick we got from that?
That's
You know what great gimmick we got from that?
What do we get?
Remember when Ivory acted like she was like this purist? And she was like, I'm not coming out and just showing my boobs and butt like these other girls. And she wore like a white collared shirt with like a little like Kentucky Fried Chicken bow tie almost, like the Colonel would wear. And she would go out and she'd shame all the female wrestlers about how inappropriate what they were wearing was and the way they're conducting themselves and behaving on television was inappropriate. And we got this kind of like Mormonish kind of like mom being like, I'm not out here to be objectified. And then the girls would come out. And I think at one point they ripped Ivory's shirt, and Ivory's hot, so everyone popped because Ivory's, it was a huge, or one of my favorite women's wrestling gimmicks was this super pure Ivory. The crowd hated it. They're like, shut up. We want to see the puppies. And then Jerry Lawler hated it.
Shut up. We want to see the
Yeah,
puppies.
and Jerry Lawler's there going, why is she doing this? It was the
He
greatest.
screamed it 50 times a week for a good 4-year stretch there, man. That was all he would scream. All right. But from some of the ones that were a bit more out there to more the characters themselves. The best one is obviously The Undertaker. We've talked about Undertaker.
Hands
before.
down.
But there's some other characters in there that I think have been forgotten along the way or don't get celebrated as much as they should. And my personal favorite is The Godfather.
Ooh.
I don't know how this got on TV. I don't know how it stayed on TV after it got on TV, even in the Attitude Era. But For those who don't know, The Godfather, he had been other gimmicks before. He had been this guy named Papa Shango, who was this like African voodoo witch doctor guy. He was also, I think, Kama in the Nation of Domination.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kama Mustafa. That's right, dude.
He was awesome.
And he was like the angry black man in that. And then he became the Godfather, which was a pimp, a full-on pimp, dressed like a pimp, walked like a pimp, came out with what they called a hoe train, had a train of hoes behind him. The man had a hoe train. Do you understand? It had an engine. It had a dining car. It had the passenger cars, and it had a girl with a big old caboose in the back, always. Like, he legit had a hoe train.
You know how he got that hoe train? He would go to a strip club in whatever town was near and be like, you guys want to be on television tonight? Like, I do a gimmick where I got whatever. All you got to do is just dress hot and come and meet me. And he would literally have actual strippers come down with him on the ramp.
You just made The Godfather even cooler to me.
Yeah, you would literally be like, you want to be on?
So underappreciated.
Be part of the hoe train.
He worked security and was a manager at a strip bar. That's why he probably went and did that, because dude's like 6'7", 6'8".
He's awesome.
He was huge and the tallest pimp ever.
Definitely the strongest.
For sure, the tallest pimp. He would come out there with his ladies and he would cut promos about selling women for sex and smoking weed and selling weed. And like he did, and I'd be watching this like, how is this not getting bleeped left and right? And then the next week he was on TV. And then the next week he was on TV. And it lasted a long ass time. And the whole train came every single time with him. Every single time.
It is a concerning time for wrestling, to say the least. Literally, this is wrestling notoriously was, it was family friendly in a way. And then when it got like, when I turned into a teenager, it got like a little more PG-13, right? Like, it's still sort of for teenagers. You'd still think you'd want to make it a little appropriate if it's for teenagers. But no, they had the Godfather, which is the gimmick you just named, who came out with this hoe train, who was portraying an actual pimp, making it look cool. And then you had a guy who played a porn star named Val Venus. And he would come out and just say inappropriate things while he wore a towel.
Hello,
all greasy.
Ladies.
The big Valboshki's a lot like a Rubik's Cube. The more you play with it, the harder it gets. Right? And the music was all slime. We literally have a pimp and a porn star on television. At one point, they chopped off Val Venus's penis on television.
No, they did not.
Choppy
they
pee-pee.
did not. And choppy pee-pee.
That's what he said. Choppy pee-pee. It was very easy to find on the internet. So it was a weird time.
Was it an Asian guy with a sword saying choppy?
Oh, yeah.
Damn it, WWF.
I've actually got a good side quest for this. I was at a wrestling thing for my friend Sean's house, and he had all of these wrestlers. And Val Venus was like one of the coolest guys. He just wanted to talk about cryptocurrency, cigars, and like politics. And I was like, this is the guy that they had play a porn star named Val Venus. We asked him how he came up with the gig or the character, and he goes, I didn't come up with it. He goes, they came to see me at an independent thing. And so Vince Russo goes and watches Val, and they're driving to the next gig. Vince Russo just jumps like in his car and they're driving. And he calls Vince while Val Venus is in the car, and Vince is like, how is he? And he goes, he's great. Great wrestler, great body, good look. He goes, what was his thing? He's like, I don't know. He just wants to sit here and talk politics with me. But if you ask me, he looks like a greasy porn star. And Vince was like, perfect. And just made him a greasy porn star based off of Vince Russo's phone call of like describing what he looked like.
Of course he did, because it was vocation wrestling. I mean, that's what Vince did. You're a hockey player.
Yeah.
You're a repo man. You're a porn star. I mean, that was a big part of what he built was you're an IRS agent. A fucking IRS agent is a professional wrestler.
Well, I love that you just referenced
agent.
Repo Man, because that might be one of the worst.
I hate a fake laugh more than anything in acting. Okay, a fake laugh to me is a knife in both my eyes, both my ears, in the part where your spine connects to the brain. Like, all those parts of my body hurt. So when Seth Rollins does the laugh, sometimes it hurts because it's forced, and I know it's not an organic thing. It's something that either he wants to do or Vince really wants him to do. The Repo Man laugh is the single worst laugh in the history of professional wrestling. And there have been a lot of fake laughs. Doink's got me a few times, but Doink sometimes would do it off a prank, so it was okay. This guy's like, I'm the Repo Man. It was like when Monica, the Monica character on Friends, was making fun of her boyfriend Chandler's work laugh. Like that's how bad it hurt my face when he would do it. And he would always have those vocation type, the freaking boogeyman, bro.
Yeah.
The boogeyman, the goon, like all these, man, they were all in that same realm. What's the worst vocation wrestler ever?
I mean, Repo Man's got to be. Also, what was their idea of what a Repo Man looked like? Like, why is he wearing...
Oh, yeah, they dressed him like the little bandit.
Yeah, exactly. He looked like the Hamburglar or something. Like, if you guys are listening to this...
That's what he did, yeah.
You have no idea who we're talking about. Google Barry Darsow, who also was from Demolition, which was like kind of Road Warriors before the Road Warriors, kind of mixed kind of S&M, like leather guys. Well, it was kind of, I think they were trying to mimic Mad Max when they did Demolition. But the Repo Man was played by one third of Demolition, a guy named Barry, who he was played the Repo Man. But he wear like a bandana, like a black bandana, like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And then he wore like a big coat out to the ring. He'd have like just a wrestling singlet underneath. And what's weird about it is like he in the beginning, when I was young, I've seen him come to the ring with like a rope and like a hook, like he was going to tow a car. But then they kind of just stopped doing it. He just come out with his jacket and that's it. There was no rope. I was like, what the? Like, even as a little kid, I was going, I don't understand the hell they're doing with this guy. Also, what is a Repo Man? I had to ask my dad, like, what's a Repo Man? Probably one of the worst.
The movie Repo Man. Watch the movie Repo Man. That's pretty cool.
Never seen that. Didn't even know that was a movie.
Never?
No.
There's a movie called Repo Man that's actually kind of cool. I think Emilio Estevez was in it when he was like 21 years old.
Does he actually repossess things or is he just a wrestler?
Just watch it. It's a cool. I don't spoil movies. I'm in movies. I don't like to spoil them. This is probably the worst, and then we should finish with a couple that we like.
Okay.
Do you remember Mantar?
Yes.
Half Minotaur, half man, although a Minotaur is half man, half bull. This was the only time I've seen this was watching an episode of Dark Side of the Ring, which is a show you got me into.
Yeah.
I haven't seen every episode, but I watched the Brawl for All episode after you and I first spoke about it, and it really gave me a wild perspective on it, and I hated it even more.
Yeah.
But in the beginning of that show, they showed Mantar, and they had that writer Vince Russo saying like, I don't think he's going to be able to get in the ring. And then sure as shit, he couldn't get in the ring. That or Shockmaster is probably the worst of the worst because that lasted all of 10 seconds. You know the Shockmaster, right?
And I think everyone that listens to our podcast knows it. But if they don't,
look it up. I don't even want, should we even spoil it or just say look it up?
Well, it happened a long time. But I will say like, it's basically the reason it's so notorious is because they were introducing a new character. And things went so wrong that the character within 10 seconds was no longer going to be able to be a wrestler.
The greatest part of that video, if you listen carefully, after the chaos happens, and I don't want to say what the chaos is for any new fans that haven't watched it, you can hear Ric Flair go, I told you.
You can also hear him curse inside. The guy, you can hear him curse on television.
I heard they did it on purpose. I heard Dusty Rhodes hated the idea. Dusty was running it. He was the one in the gorilla position and had them nail a 2x4 right above where he was going to walk in so that he would purposely trip and fall. That was the story I heard.
That's what. See, you know what's weird about wrestling is it is forever hard to tell what's real and fake. Earl Hebner, I might get in trouble for saying this. Earl Hebner, when we hung out with him for a couple days for this wrestling thing. And Earl Hebner was like, that's all fake. When we were talking about the Montreal screw job, he was even saying like that was all the work. That was all the work. Like
no way.
I know, but that's the thing. It's most notoriously like famous thing. Like Brett's talked about it, Sean's talked about it, and he thinks they're both leaning into it as they knew the finishes and they sold it as whatever.
But maybe he's leaning into his version of the kayfabe, man. You don't know.
These wrestlers, rascals.
Who's got the best new gimmick of the new guys? Can throw guys like Luchasaurus out there, The Fiend.
Yeah, my favorite was The Fiend, for sure. Big Fiend fan. Sad with what they did with it. Sad with what happened. Thought it was perfect with the Playhouse. I thought every week it kept people guessing. It was really like a throwback to what I really loved about wrestling in a modern time, which I like. You don't see a lot of the gimmicks. You don't even see Finn Balor's demon really anymore. With that being said, Kane, honorable mention, Mankind, all of Bray Wyatt's stuff, including The Fiend. I even liked when they burned them all up and he came up out of the ring, burnt. I like that they're still doing those type of things, and Bray Wyatt's trying to keep it alive. So I think that's the best, like, modern one for sure for me. What's your favorite gimmick ever?
The Undertaker. I think that's probably everybody's.
All right, then what's your favorite besides Undertaker? Because he has got to be the GOAT for gimmicks in wrestling.
But besides Undertaker, it's Godfather. But I will say this: Undertaker not only had the coolest gimmick, but he may have had the coolest vehicle ride out ever, because he got to ride out on the Harley. And I know the beer truck's awesome. I know the milk truck's awesome. I know there's been cool cars that have come out, but the Harley is so epic that you have to be man enough to ride it. And Hulk Hogan wasn't. Like, that to me was always like, that's a burning image in my head when Hulk Hogan wasn't able to ride off on the Undertaker's motorcycle. It was like it. And it's only because he doesn't know how to ride well.
Right.
But it always felt like it was the Undertaker's bike saying, nah, dude, you're not me. You don't get to ride me. Only the man gets to ride me.
Also,
so that's why I've always liked.
Is it true? I don't know if you would know, or if maybe Alex would know, but like, what I don't know where I heard this, so it might not even be true, but or like where it got in my brain, but Undertaker always wanted to do the American Badass gimmick. Maybe not with that title, but like he always wanted to do that. He always wanted to ride a Harley. He wanted the bandana. Because he's like a biker guy. He's also a Texas guy. Like I heard that he'd always wanted to do that. And once Undertaker's gimmick was just so obviously legendary and he basically could do no wrong, he got to do the badass. He got to do the motorcycle gimmick. Yeah. But I heard that was like his idea. That's something he had always wanted to do, but I don't know if that's true or not.
His wife reached out to me on Instagram and said they wanted to talk to me about something. Could they have my number? And I gave it to her, but I never heard from him. So if I ever do hear from him, I'll ask him. I like hearing him talk about the business in the old days. He was always really generous and just really cool. He's a good storyteller.
Yeah, nobody doesn't like The Undertaker. And if they don't, I've never heard anyone say anything bad about him.
We'll leave it on this. Him and Bruce told me a story about parting with Cypress Hill that's like the coolest story ever, and I'll tell you when we're off the air.
Parting with Cypress Hill? The band?
Yes.
All right, I'm excited.
Yes, the rap group. All right, so that's it for this week's episode. Tune in for Thursday where we break it down even more in your bonus content. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. On behalf of my excellent co-host, Mr. Jeff Dye, I'm Freddie Prinze Jr., and this was Wrestling with Freddie.
Yeah. Follow us on Instagram, Wrestling with Freddie. Twitter is WWFreddie Follow us on all the socials so you can submit your questions for the Federation.
This has been a production of iHeart's My Cultura Podcast Network. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.